Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. I gotta be honest. I don't like these conservatives helping out Gavin Newsom. I don't know if I'm the only one. I don't know if you're seeing it, but Gavin Newsom started a podcast, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a dud because it's Gavin Newsom. But the next thing you know, episode 1, Charlie Kirk. And then I'll tell you about episode 2 after I'm done discussing what he did with Charlie Kirk. But this is just, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Here, I'll play a little bit.
I'm going to be giving commentary throughout this conversation about some of my thoughts, but it is the entire thing that you'll be able to watch. Also, the full on.
What time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is the point.
You canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
But I appreciate that. I mean, it's the reason you're here, because I think people need to understand your success, your influence, what you've been up to, and the fact that you're on these college campus tours. And to your point, man, you just open up. I mean, you're like, ask me anything.
Anything.
Challenge me,
whatever.
When did this whole thing, when did you start putting this together?
I've been at this for 13 years, and it's been
I like Gavin Newsom. He's like baffled by that. He's like, you're just telling people to ask you questions, and they're allowed to ask whatever you want, and they're allowed to challenge you, and you don't. He's like, this is revolutionary what this guy's doing here.
A wild movement, really accelerated once President Trump kind of came on the scene. Right around, I'd say 2021, we had a goal. Could we move the youth vote 10 points over 10 years? And
was it literally you sat down and put that numerical together?
Yeah, like, can we move it 10 points over 10 years? Ish, approximate. Yeah. Because our whole hypothesis was, and we did this alongside President Trump and his great team, was that this demographic is disproportionately to the Democrat side. We believe Democrats were taking them for granted. We think that your side had no message whatsoever and an ideological monopoly. We saw some of the fault lines there. And to President Trump's credit, he also harmonized with the strategy by going on podcasting and using TikTok. But yeah, I mean, we did it in 4 years, not 10, large in part thanks to you guys.
And we'll get to that, and I sincerely get to that, because I want to stress test some of those fault lines as it relates to the reality of our party and where we are today, vis-a-vis your ascendancy, not just individually as an organization. But where was that sort of moment for you? Because it's interesting. I mean, you're such a young guy, so it's not like deep biography here. It's not like 20 years in the wilderness, right?
I gotta say, what the hell is that? What are we doing here? Huh? I just gotta. What are we doing? Hey, what are you doing?
His first book, getting a TV show that was canceled, coming back. It's more just this immediacy of ascendancy. Was it, I mean, were you sort of born and bred with an ideological mindset, or were you more open-minded and you started to realize a lot of BS was out there?
Yeah, I've always been conservative. Obviously grown in that over the last, 10-ish years. Was more libertarian, I'd say, in the first couple of years, as to be expected. As I got married and have kids, become more conservative. But no, look, just one of the things we saw in the last couple of years that the Democrats completely ignored, and your side was basically not acknowledging it was happening, was the crisis that young people were experiencing.
Right.
That, I mean, it's the first time in America's history that a 30-year-old is going to have it worse off than their parents.
Right.
It's a breakdown of the social compact.
That's right.
They are the most alcohol addicted, most drug addicted, most suicidal, most depressed, most medicated generation in history. Right. And the message that was largely being fed to a lot of young people was lower your expectations. You're not going to have the same American dream that your parents would have. And we saw this as an opportunity, especially with young men. And again, this got ridiculed a lot by the press that, they're creating this manosphere thing. Look, they're half of the population and necessary for any society and civilization to succeed, which is to have both strong men and strong women. Yeah. And we went about that in a very unique and creative way. And again, the president became a cultural phenomenon, where no matter what you threw at this guy, he rose above it. And you would even have to give him credit. I mean, facing 700 years in federal prison, states tried to kick him off the ballot. I know you spoke out against it, but California did have a faction that tried to kick him off the ballot, right?
That's right.
And despite all of that, of course, being shot, and that was kind of the crescendo of all of it, he kind of became this figure of an American comeback story. So he personified what a lot of young people, especially young men, wanted back in their politics, which was an ascendant rebel attitude against these institutions that have failed them so miserably.
It's interesting. So what would, and you keep saying we, which is interesting, and that's the organization that you created, Turning Point USA.
We would be like
Turning Point
conservative
Action.
movement, MAGA. But yes, I have Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action, Charlie Kirk Show.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying we, I mean more specifically kind of those of us that saw this political moment 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. But you were at this even before then. I
correct.
mean,
Yeah.
So when did you decide to sort of just shift your gear? I mean, you were working.
See, hold on, let him do it again.
For another Kirk, for his campaign, not
Mark
related.
Kirk, yeah.
Mark Kirk. So you.
This guy. Listen, it was a great conversation, okay? Anytime I talk about a podcast, I listen to the whole thing. So it was a great conversation. But I know for a fact, because I do this same thing that Gavin Newsom is trying to do. When I watch a podcast, I learn from it. I want to do interviews like Joe Rogan one day. Every time I watch it, I learn. I learn how he talks, how he deflects questions, how he changes subjects. I can tell from watching thousands of episodes, I can tell what he avoids, what he embraces, when his views change. I can see it all. I can tell exactly what's going on. And that's everybody. Every streamer that I watch, I always learn. And sometimes I'll watch it and I'll just listen to the guests. And sometimes I'll watch it and I'll just listen to the host. And sometimes I'll actually watch it and see what their hands are doing and see how they're looking and see how the camera angles work and see what cameras they're using, what microphone arms they have, and what microphones I learn completely. But, in regards to like when I compare Joe Rogan, at least if he had an issue with me, okay? He doesn't even know me. But if he had an issue with me, at least he's making it hard. I have to go and put hours in. Charlie Kirk is just giving Gavin Newsom everything right off the bat. He's just giving him a whole breakdown, of what he did, why he did it, what their main goals are. Gavin Newsom can just mirror this now. And I'm saying it like, listen, I always embrace my biases. I always talk about my biases. Not really a fan, if I gotta be honest. Maybe you really like him as a governor. Not the biggest fan. I have to admit that, okay? And I understand that as I'm saying all this. But it's just like, man, why? And then on top of that, you're helping him in regards to what he can do as he runs for president, because that's what he's going to do. He is going to run for president. He can't be governor forever. He's going to eventually run for president. He knows that Charlie Kirk had a big impact on Trump being president today. And now he's getting the exact advice. He'll be able to mirror the same thing and push the same type of way. It'll be all fake and not genuine whatsoever because it's Gavin Newsom, but still, I just don't get why he's doing this type of thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I got to be honest. Even Sean Hannity had a talk with Charlie Kirk about this. And I'm so glad at least Hannity was able to see and kind of echo what I'm saying here.
I moderated the debate with DeSantis, and I have tried to reason with this man, and he does not listen, ever. Maybe, is this the tipping point for him? Did you get the feeling he really wants to change?
I don't know. I think he wants to be president, Sean, more than anything else on the planet. I think you can agree he has more political ambition than almost anybody in the Democrat Party. And I think he understands that the entire country is moving center-right and is accelerating at a rapid pace. In fact, we are course correcting after 4 failed years under Joe Biden and all of the woke stuff and the anti-common sense movement. Gavin Newsom had me on his podcast, and I was shocked all of a sudden where he decided to diverge away from the orthodox opinion in the Democrat Party, which is as simple as saying that it's not fair that a biological man can compete in female sports. Now, number one, I don't believe that he actually has any heartfelt beliefs in this. I think it's purely political transactional. However, everybody in the audience should understand this means that we are winning at such a rapid pace that the governor of the largest state in the country, the largest Democrat state, who obviously wants to be president, has to adjust his policies against the base of the party to even be taken seriously to run for president in 2028.
No, see, right here, this is where Charlie's wrong. It's not that it's not that we are winning so much that they have to change. What Gavin Newsom is doing is exactly what Joe Biden did. What Joe Biden did back in the day, well, not even back in the day, back when he was running, he started positioning himself, even I think in the Obama era, he would position himself as a moderate. Oh, that Joe Biden, he's a moderate. And that's what Gavin Newsom's doing right now. By saying that little statement that Charlie Kirk's taking as a win, what Gavin Newsom is actually doing, this is my opinion, this is what I see, what he's doing is making himself seem moderate enough so the people, because here's the thing, if you're in the center, then when you look at the left, you're pretty much on the right. And if you're like center right, oh, well, then you're just far right. You're like, and when I say far right, I mean you're so far from the left. You're so far from agreeing with what they talk about at all that you're just, there's no you going over to that side. But when one guy who's actually far left decides to say what he said about female or males in women's sports, then all of a sudden those people who are on the center and those people who are like center right, they start to say, wow, I've never heard one of those guys say that before. This is a trick that Gavin Newsom's playing. I will never forget the clip of Tucker Carlson talking about Gavin Newsom and how he is the type of person who could beat a lie detector test, how his heart doesn't move and his breath doesn't quake. And it was funny when Tucker Carlson did it, but he was dead serious. I don't know how Charlie got roped into this. I don't know why he thinks this is a win. It's not. It's not with Gavin Newsom. If it was someone else, I would say that 100%. And the only reason I'm acting like this right now, the only reason I'm saying this is because it's Gavin Newsom. He had no problem doing what he did to California. He'll have no problem doing it to the entire country. He'll just have no problem. And he'll look you dead in the face as you say, hey, you're wrecking the country. He'll look you right in the face. He'll smile and he'll say, no, I'm not. You are. And you'll be like, but I'm not president. And he'll say, exactly. I'm telling you, it's a mistake to be doing this type of thing. I get it. You should be able to talk. And it's great that they had that conversation. But Charlie's reading that all wrong. This is not a win for him or any of us. This conversation, even when Gavin was getting owned, was a complete win for him because now he looks more appeasing, again, to anyone who's center and anyone who's center right. And because here's the thing also, think about this. If by say, okay, it is a dark time, he is running for president and it's him, a Democrat versus a Republican, anyone on the left who has a problem with what he said about women's sports, even more rhetoric as he like boosts it up and he says more stuff, they're still going to vote for him. And anyone who's center and on the right, well, they have a choice to make now because they're like, well, he is sensible. Oh, he says a bunch of things. And, and the next thing you know, all those people who felt homeless, all those people who felt like I don't have a home in the Democrat Party anymore, they'll start to realize, oh, wait, I can actually go back because of this guy. I'm telling you, this is not good what he's done. And I know I'm biased because, I'm not a fan of him. I get it, but still. And when I say not a fan of him, I mean Gavin.
Okay, but the problem is it's so transparently about political expediency if he's going to change his core beliefs. And here would be the biggest problem that I would see that he has. He has something called a track record. He's been in government. He's the mayor of San Francisco, lieutenant governor for 8 years. At the end of this term, he'll have been governor for 8 years. He has a track record. So I don't think you get to run away from the positions you have been holding for decades just by talking to conservatives like Charlie Kirk. He never invited me on the podcast. I'm offended, by the way. I'm very offended. I feel left out.
Well, you should text Gavin. And secondly, you're exactly right, Sean. There was a moment
before you went on.
There was a moment of podcast. Yeah. Well, no, and look, there was this back and forth where I drilled him. I said, look, you have the highest cost of living in California. You have the most homelessness in the country in California. You have the highest poverty rate in the country in California. You have the second highest home prices in the country. You guys control the House, the Senate, the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor's mansion, secretary of state, and the attorney general, and every statewide elected office for the last 20 years. How is this Republicans' fault? What record are you going to run on? And you could, every time there's anything California specific, you know this from moderating the wonderful DeSantis debate, he gets hyper aggressive and focuses on one little minute detail, and he just tries to bring you down into the ditch. But everyone has been voting with their feet when it comes to California over the last couple of years. They have net population loss. People are leaving in record numbers. They also had the highest gas prices, unnecessarily highest gas tax. And so, look, there's nothing to run on except for the fact that he is very slippery and slick, and he's trying to reinvent and rebrand himself. And look, I'll talk to anybody at any time. There was a whole part, too, where I even got him to tacitly admit that President Trump is unlike any other cultural phenomenon we've ever seen. He's like, oh, yeah, I went to the Oval Office with President Trump, and I had a great time with him. I said, well, are you going to work with President Trump with ICE and immigration and Border Patrol? And, of course, he had a slick answer to that as well. But I think there's a looming Democrat civil war happening because Gavin Newsom is realizing that if he does not come to the middle on a lot of issues and magnify some of his positions, there will be no chance for him in a general election. But President Trump has completely remade the American body politic, and you can start to see the most opportunistic Democrat of them all, Gavin Newsom, at least attempting to adjust with some of his rhetoric. We'll see if his actions follow.
It's crazy. It's crazy to have this thought process, knowing how much this guy has lied in the past. It's so mind-boggling that someone as intelligent as Charlie Kirk. Listen, if I put on my tinfoil Speedo, which I already have on, right away, and maybe it's just because I'm biased and I'm upset about the whole situation, but it's like, bro, who you working for? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? But I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. Okay, I'm not gonna point my tinfoil Speedo at Charlie. I'm not gonna point it at him. Okay, because you guys know when I point this Speedo, okay, I'm not gonna point it. I'm not gonna point it at him. But I think he's wrong. I think he's 100% wrong about this and doing stuff like this. You know. He's talking about, hey, my son's a fan and this and that. Here, I'll show you another clip of the podcast.
Democrats you admire out there right now?
Democrats I respect. Bobby Kennedy type? I respect. Tulsi Gabbard.
Why are you laughing? Why are you smiling?
Because they're on our team now. Because you guys kicked out your best people. It's like the people that were into. This is a great point, though, Governor. Is that Bobby Kennedy was a heterodox opinion on a thing that a lot of people were concerned about. Get him out. He's an anti-vaxxer. Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard, who was an anti-war. Get her out. She's a Russian agent. Yeah. Do you guys see how you have an unhealthy purification process where eventually you're left with just a 31% approval rating and a bunch of people that are talking to each other? And meanwhile, we're the ones that have Democrats in our cabinet winning the electoral majority vote, because there needs to be said, if Democrats are serious about being a majority party ever again, look at that ideological diversity. We have people that, they want to go to war with every country that says something bad against us. And then we have people that are far more dovish, like Rand Paul. But that is a better, more, dare I say, diverse picture. You could say diversity is our strength.
Oh, look at you.
And that's great. It's great, and he's right. It's just, but you're really giving him a breakdown of everything that needs to change. And it's not like he can't find this out himself. But again, going back to the analogy I gave about me learning from other podcasters and streamers, they don't make it easy for me. I can't message them and just be like, "Hey, tell me everything." I still have to do the work of watching them and being, clued in. Here's another
I think you talked about it the other day. A lot of folks were talking about that Carville article where he talked about
roll over and play dead.
Roll over, but in essence, he said that. I think it was a strategic retreat, right? That we need to come back. Trump's starting to implode. His numbers are getting soft. This was even before the tariff issues, et cetera. And then come back and strike when hot. And I immediately, no BS, thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, owning this space, every day getting a convert, every day picking up 1, 2, 10,000 folks, continuing the momentum, coming out of this damn election. And then I'm thinking about, we're going to stand back and watch you run circles around us for 6 months, the next 2 or 3 years, waiting for the moment to finally strike. Struck me as not necessarily the best advice, and it's not a knock on Carville, who I have deep respect for. What's your thoughts?
That's okay. So I don't have to. He's right about one thing in the last 40 years. It's economy is stupid, and boy, he spent down that one line pretty amazingly. Yeah, I hope you guys retreat.
You kind of like the
more
advice.
for us.
You like
I mean,
the advice.
there's no opposition. There's no activist spark. You guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos? What are the ones that
I don't
are
know.
most
This
cringy?
like harm.
It's this one. He's talking about this video, right? This video, this podcast, Gavin Newsom. That's the cringe video he's talking about. No, I'm just being a hater there. It was a great conversation. It was a great conversation to hear Charlie Kirk having these conversations. And I will say it kind of does help Charlie Kirk at the same time, because he is having a conversation with a governor. He's showing that he can have a battle of wits with a governor. He's showing that he can actually trump a governor, no pun intended, a few times throughout the whole podcast. He shows that he has great political acumen. I mean, and obviously I would think in the next few years we're going to see Charlie Kirk running for something, whether it's Congress or Senate or governor of somewhere. Not really sure, but it does put him in a good position as well. It's just I feel like Charlie Kirk didn't need that from Gavin. I feel like he could get in front of a few different governors on the Republican side. I don't know, man. When I saw this, I was just like, I don't understand why Charlie's doing this. And now Gavin has Steve Bannon on the podcast. Why are these guys doing this?
Well, and I appreciate the notion of agency, that we're not bystanders in the world. It's decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And that fundamental notion of agency, I think, is important more broadly. And I think that goes to some of the issues around, victimization. And I see a lot of that, respectively, on the right, increasingly, even with Trump often approaching things from that sort of mindset.
What do you mean? What do you mean for Trump?
I think there's sort of the grievance narrative that comes from Trump. This notion there is sort of a victim.
Well,
grievance
they did try to put him in prison for 300 years, right? They did try to bankrupt him.
Well, that's
if a guy had ever had ever.
Do they not realize if this keeps up, they are going to make Gavin more appealing to people who are right-leaning right now? Does that not clue in? In a world where we're more than likely looking at Newsom versus Vance 2028, more than likely that's what we're looking at. I don't know who else is thinking about running, but those two, I'm pretty sure, are going to be running. In a world where those two are going head-to-head, do you want more? Like, look at the vote already. When we saw the vote between Trump and Harris, what are you doing? Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because Trump can't fix the country in 4 years. And, God forbid, Gavin gets a hold of it next. He's not going to be like, let's do everything Trump was doing. It's going to get way off course. You need Trump to do his 4 years. You need Vance or Don Jr. or someone to step in for another 4, hopefully another 8. And the country can be in such a crazily amazing place. But if Gavin all of a sudden just sneaks in there. So I just don't get it. And I just feel like there's a lot at stake. America is very, very, very important to me. I'm sure it's important to anybody who's watching right now, but it's just, man, Gavin Newsom at it again. He's smart. I'll give him that. I don't know how he got these guys on his podcast. I don't get it, but I don't think they realize who they're helping or what they're helping happen. That's just my opinion.